Morning, guys. Another major fear we have in our lives, and this is true for most of us, is the fear of loss of love. And this is a really tough one because our very essence, everything we're made of, all the truth principles we're made of, it's all love. And we want to feel that connection, that love, that belonging with every single human being. That's what we really want deep down inside. But unless we become centered on correct principles and things that are intangible, things we can't see, energies that we can't see, unless we become centered on finding our true happiness, freedom, and success, and if we're not happy, nobody else around us can be happy because we're not giving the best of ourselves. So we have to overcome this fear of losing love, fear of losing people that we love most. And if we do, we can achieve our greatness. Have a great day, everyone.
Take control of your mind and your thoughts and focus on your breathing. Feel the power of you, the real you, controlling your breathing. The real you is always present right now. You are more powerful than you can ever begin to imagine because you get to focus on the greatest gift ever. Now, your presence, where your attention is being drawn to now, no matter what's going on outside your mind. Feel the power of your breathing. There are astronomical numbers of things going on in one breath. That's how powerful you are. That's how powerful your determination is. So let's use that power. Let's use that third eye, that mind's eye that we all have. Let's use it right now. And let's see ourselves doing the best we can on all the stretches and exercises today in our gym period. Gym. G-Y-M. Grow your mind. And here we are in the gym of life. Growing our minds and growing our bodies. Taking control of what we truly are. Simply being. Human being, the most powerful energy thing in the universe. That's who you really are. So see yourself right now. See it in your mind. Because whatever you see in your mind, you can make real with your eyes open. Everything created with your eyes closed can be made real with your eyes open. Good morning, determination. Good to see everyone again. Here we are once again, working together on our minds and our bodies. When I say go, we're going to start jogging for a minute on the spot, or you can simply keep doing your best walk. It's up to you. But whatever you do, remember, do it to the best of your ability. Do it the way you were born to do it. Because the way you do one thing, the way you think one thing, is the way you'll do and think about everything. All right, here we go. Ready? And go. Feel the power of you right now. Growing your mind, growing your body by simply doing your best. Your best jog on the spot. Or if you're walking, your best walk ever. Feel the power and energy of our blood beginning to flow through different parts of our incredible bodies. Keep going, keep going. Use your determination. Use your greatest power. Almost there. Keep going. And stop. All right, back to our best walk. If you aren't already doing your best walk. But again, feel the power of you regaining control of your breathing. Focusing your attention on your breathing. Your breath can always bring you to your greatest gift. But now, right now, your presence. All right, everybody, let's do shoulder rolls. 10 forward. Here we go. Okay, good. And backwards. 10 backwards. Arm circles forward, 10 forward. As big as you can. Really think about what you're doing. Once again, feel your body moving through space. As you work, big arm circles forward. And backwards. Again, 10 backwards. 1, 3, 4. Alright, good job. Okay, and hands on our hips, bend our knees, and side stretch. 5 on each side. Alright, excellent. Now, twist our bodies. And we'll do 10, 5 on each side. Keep your feet flat on the floor. Alright, excellent. Let's do 5 push-ups. Try our best. Here we go. Good. Let's do 5 sit-ups. Here we go. Gorgeous day. Just feeling the power of all of us working together right now. All right, and let's stand up and let's do lunges. Here we go. 3 on each side. Okay, good. And let's do 10-second plank. Grab these knees off the ground. Hold it there for 10. Keep focusing on your breath. Okay, and stand up. Let's do 5 squats. Here we go. 5 best squats ever. Alright, excellent, good. And let's reach for the sky or the ceiling wherever you are on your toes. Here we go. We're never going to get there. We're never going to get to that ceiling. But it's the process. It's the reaching. That's the pure joy. Happiness, joy is in a moment. Nobody can take that away from you. Alright, and reach for your toes. Once again, reaching is what matters. It's okay if you don't touch your toes. Alright, and come on up, let's grab one leg and balance. Once again, bend that other knee if you have to. Imagine you've got roots growing underneath your feet and pushing or growing into the ground. See that in your mind's eye, where everything is created. Alright, and switch, the other one. Excellent, and now let's hug our knee, here we go. Again, find that balance point. Everything you do is all about finding that balance. It's in a stretch, it's in an exercise, it's in a thought, a word. It's everything. Alright, good work, and switch. Gotta constantly strive to find our balance, our own unique balance. Among the balance of this universe, the balance of all of us together. Alright, good. And let's sit down.
Ronaldinho to Messi. Will he get that first goal for Barcelona? Remember the name, Lionel Messi. At the age of 17 scores his first goal for Barcelona.
Pressiona, també pressiona Messi. Embolic dins l'àrea, Messi, gol, 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 gol.
It has been rectified. Messi, what will he do? Gets it onto his left foot. Every goal's a gem for Barcelona.
In 1961, comic book writer Stan Lee was ready to quit. He was frustrated with the silly stories he had to write and felt his career had stalled. He told his wife he was done with comics. Instead of letting him give up, Stan's wife Joan gave him a challenge. She said, "If you're gonna quit anyway, why not create one comic the way you think it should be done?" Stan took her advice. That year, he wrote a new kind of superhero story, filled with characters who felt real and human. He co-created the Fantastic Four, a team of heroes with flaws, fears, and personalities unlike any seen before. The comic became a surprise hit. Fans loved it. Stan didn't quit after all. In fact, he went on to create Spider-Man, Iron Man, the X-Men, and countless more characters. The company that would become Marvel Comics was born. As Stan later said, "If you have an idea that you think is good, don't let some idiot talk you out of it." Stan Lee almost walked away right before his biggest successes. Because he listened to one smart piece of advice and stayed true to his vision, the world got a universe of superheroes. Sometimes your biggest breakthroughs come right when you're closest to giving up. If you've been here before, drop a hashtag Believe in the comments below so I can feature you here in a future video. And if you're new, welcome to Believe Nation, the only channel that helps you believe in yourself daily, one video at a time. Don't quit right before your breakthrough. Stan Lee's story shows the power of not giving up on your vision. He was on the brink of leaving comics forever, but that low point became the setup for his greatest success. This isn't just one rare case. Many success stories happen right after a person almost quit. It's a pattern we see over and over again. Colonel Harlan Sanders, KFC, at 65 years old. Colonel Sanders was broke and living on a $105 monthly pension, but instead of giving up on life, he hit the road with his fried chicken recipe. He was rejected 1,009 times by restaurant owners who told him no. 1,009 times. Most people would have quit, but not the Colonel. He kept going until he heard that one yes. He finally found a restaurant that agreed to try his recipe, and it became a hit. If Colonel Sanders had quit after the hundreds of rejections, Kentucky Fried Chicken might never have spread around the world. His story proves that it's never too late to succeed and that perseverance can pay off big time. J.K. Rowling, author of Harry Potter. In the 1990s, J.K. Rowling was a struggling single mother on welfare, writing her first book in cafes with her baby by her side. She sent her Harry Potter manuscript to 12 publishers, and every one of them rejected her. She began losing confidence in her novel. Imagine pouring your heart into a story and getting 12 rejection letters in a row. It's crushing. She felt like a failure and almost stopped trying, but she didn't quit. Rowling kept believing in her story. Finally, on what would have been the 13th try, a publisher agreed to publish Harry Potter. Legend has it the CEO's 8-year-old daughter read the manuscript and loved it, convincing the publisher to give it a chance. The book that nobody initially wanted went on to sell over 100 million copies and spawn a global franchise. If J.K. Rowling had given up after those rejections, the world would have never met Harry Potter. Sometimes all it takes is one more attempt. 3 feet from gold. There's a famous story about the gold rush era about a man who quit too soon. A miner had been digging for gold in Colorado and found a little bit of ore. He invested in equipment and drilled deeper, dreaming of riches. But the vein of gold seemed to dry up quickly. He kept digging for a while with no luck. Frustrated, he gave up and sold his equipment to a junkman. That junkman hired an engineer to examine the mine and discovered that a huge gold deposit was just 3 feet beyond where the first miner stopped. The new owner struck it rich because he kept digging a few more feet. The original miner missed out on millions in gold because he quit literally inches away from success. Now, this story is a metaphor. You might be closer to your goal than you realize, and if you give up now, someone else might come along and finish what you started. Don't stop 3 feet from your goal. These examples show a clear truth. Many people hit their lowest point right before a breakthrough. Stan Lee was about to quit writing comics. Then he created a whole new genre of superheroes. Colonel Sanders was about to settle for a quiet retirement. Then he built a chicken empire. J.K. Rowling was ready to pack away her manuscript. Then her magic story found a home. In each case, the moment they could have given up ended up being the moment just before victory. Also, if you want to take real action after this video, I made a free worksheet just for you. It covers the top lessons from today, gives you space to write your biggest takeaways, and helps you build a simple action plan. It's 100% free. Just click the link in the description to go grab it. I'll see you there. How to keep going when you feel like giving up. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's great for them, but what about me? I feel like quitting sometimes too. Maybe you're working on a business that isn't making money yet, or you're learning a new skill that's really hard, or you're pursuing a dream and hitting nothing but obstacles. It's normal to feel discouraged. Every successful person faces moments when things go wrong or progress is painfully slow. The difference is what you do in those moments. So here are some tips to help you persevere when you feel like giving up. Number 1, remember why you started. Think back to what inspired you in the first place. What was your original passion or your vision? Keeping that why in mind can give you strength when things are tough. Maybe Stan Lee just wanted to tell great stories that he believed in. Your why can similarly reignite your motivation. Next, picture what's at stake. Ask yourself, what if I quit now? And what if I keep going? If you quit, you'll never know how close you might have been succeeding, and you might live with regret. But if you keep going, you could be on the verge of something amazing. Think of the Marvel Universe, Harry Potter, KFC, all of the things the world would have missed if those creators gave up. Your project could be the next big success, or at least something that you'll be proud of. Don't let fear or frustration stop you from finding out. Next, get support and feedback. When you're discouraged, talk to someone who believes in you. This could be a friend, a mentor, a family member. Stan Lee's wife gave him the advice that changed everything. The people around you can provide encouragement or new ideas to help push you through. Sometimes just hearing, you can do this, or getting a fresh perspective on the problem will reignite your drive. You're not alone. Even the greats needed a pep talk or a helping hand. Next, try a new approach, but give it one more shot. If you're going to quit, challenge yourself to do one more thing first. It could be trying a different strategy or putting your own unique spin on the project. Stan Lee decided to write one comic his way as a last effort, and that made all the difference. If what you're doing isn't working, see if there's another way. Experiment, improvise, or make that bold move you've been hesitating to make. Even if you fail, you'll know you gave it your best. And who knows, that next attempt might be the breakthrough that you need. And finally, believe in your idea and in yourself. If you truly think what you're doing is worthwhile, like Stan believed in his story, like Rowling believed in her book, then keep going. As Stan Lee reminded us, don't let anyone talk you out of a good idea. Success isn't guaranteed, but quitting makes failure certain. Every setback is temporary, and every no can be one step closer to a yes as long as you keep moving forward. So the next time you feel like giving up, remember Stan Lee writing that comic that no one asked for, Colonel Sanders driving around with his recipe, J.K. Rowling mailing out that manuscript again, or that miner who stopped just shy of the gold. Your breakthrough might be just around the corner. It could be one more phone call, one more vision, one more try away. Don't let frustration or doubt steal your dream. Keep going, keep believing, and stay true to your vision. You might be on the verge of something great. And congratulations, you're one video closer to who you're meant to be. Believe. Now let's learn from the incredible story of Walt Disney. Walt Disney was fired for lacking creativity, lost his first company to bankruptcy, and got rejected 300 times trying to fund Disneyland. But he refused to quit. At 22, Walt worked as a newspaper artist, dreaming of bigger things. But his editor fired him saying he wasn't creative enough. Determined to prove himself, he started Laugh-O-Gram Studios, his first animation company. He hired a team, made cartoons, and poured everything into it. But bad business deals left him broke, in debt, and sleeping in his office floor. The company went bankrupt. With just $40 in his pocket, Walt moved to Hollywood. There he created Mickey Mouse. But every studio told him it would fail. Then he pitched an even crazier idea, Disneyland. He went to 300 banks for funding. They all said no. But Walt never stopped believing. He finally secured funding, built Disneyland, and turned Disney into a multi-billion-dollar empire with movies, theme parks, and a legacy that still inspires the world today. Walt Disney was fired, broke, and rejected, but he kept going. If 300 rejections didn't stop him, what's stopping you? Early struggles in Kansas City. Disney's story begins far from the glamour of Hollywood. Born in 1901 in Chicago and raised in Missouri, young Walt had a tough childhood. His father, Elias Disney, was a strict and sometimes abusive man who struggled to make ends meet. Walt found escape in drawing cartoons, nurturing a vivid imagination despite the hardship at home. By his late teens, Walt was determined to turn his love of art into a career, a decision that would soon test his resolve. At only 18 years old, Walt took a job as an artist at the Kansas City Star newspaper. He dreamed of making it big as a cartoonist. However, that dream hit a wall when his editor fired him for not being creative enough. Imagine being told you lack imagination, the very talent you believe in. This harsh dismissal could have crushed Walt's spirit, but instead it motivated him to prove his former boss wrong. Determined to succeed on his own terms, Walt teamed up with his older brother Roy in 1920 to launch Laugh-O-Gram Studios, a small animation company in Kansas City. Walt poured his heart, soul, and savings into creating animated short films and advertisements. For a time, it seemed like his creative vision might pay off, but running a business at 21 years old was difficult. Bad deals and financial mismanagement caught up with him. Within just a couple years, Laugh-O-Gram went bankrupt, leaving Walt with nothing. He was penniless, in debt, and even had to sleep in his office before the company finally folded, a humbling failure for the young entrepreneur. Rather than give up, though, Walt saw this failure as a lesson. In 1923, with only $40 to his name, he packed a small suitcase, jumped on a train, and headed for Hollywood. It was a bold move born out of desperation and hope. Walt originally went to Los Angeles thinking he might become an actor. That was another dream that didn't pan out. But in California, he noticed a new opportunity. There were no animation studios in Hollywood at the time. Sensing his moment, Walt convinced Roy to join him on the West Coast to start fresh. Together, the brothers set up a tiny cartoon studio in a borrowed garage. Walt was effectively starting over from scratch, armed with nothing but his creativity, determination, and the lessons learned from his Kansas City failures. From Oswald to Mickey, creating an icon. In California, Walt Disney finally tasted success, then almost lost it all again. By 1927, his fledgling studio landed a deal to produce a cartoon character named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit for a New York distributor. To Walt's delight, Oswald became a hit, drawing nationwide audiences and giving Walt his first major success in animation. For a moment, it looked like Walt's bad luck had finally turned around. However, another crushing setback was on the horizon. In 1928, when Walt traveled to New York to negotiate a better contract, he was blindsided. He discovered that his distributor not only took the rights to Oswald, but had even poached Walt's team of animators out from under him. Overnight, Walt lost his most popular character and most of his staff. It was a devastating betrayal. Many people would have become bitter or given up right there, but Walt refused to quit. Instead of fighting over Oswald or falling into despair, he chose to walk away and start over yet again. A pattern that would define his career. On the long train ride back to California, Walt's resilience kicked in. He began sketching a new cartoon character, a cheerful mouse inspired in part by a pet mouse he had back in Kansas City. Walt originally named him Mortimer, but his wife Lillian thought Mickey sounded better. Thus, Mickey Mouse was born on that train in 1928. Back in Los Angeles, Walt and his small team, including legendary animator Ub Iwerks, worked tirelessly to bring Mickey to life. Mickey's first two cartoons had trouble finding distributors, but Walt struck on a groundbreaking idea. Make an animated cartoon with synchronized sound. The result was Steamboat Willie. Mickey's debut was sound in late 1928, and it became an overnight sensation. Yet even Mickey Mouse Road to Fame faced doubt and rejection. Walt struggled to find financiers and distributors willing to back his talking cartoon idea. In fact, bankers rejected the concept of Mickey Mouse over 300 times before one said yes. It's almost unbelievable. Walt pitched his cartoon hundreds of times to skeptical investors who told him a talking mouse would never ever work. Finally, one distributor took a chance, and Mickey Mouse quickly skyrocketed in popularity, proving all the naysayers wrong. By the early 1930s, Mickey had made Walt Disney a rising star in Hollywood. At just 27 years old, Walt had gone from bankrupt artist to the proud owner of a successful cartoon studio on the strength of a little mouse with big round ears. However, success brought its own stresses. Walt was a relentless worker, constantly pushing for better animation quality and new ideas. He poured all the Mickey profits into expanding his studio and creating new cartoons. Before long, Walt became overworked and deeply in debt again as he developed more ambitious projects. The pressure caught up to him in the early 1930s. Walt's top animator and close friend, Ub Iwerks, the one who helped design Mickey, was lured away by another company. Facing that loss and exhaustion from nonstop work, Walt suffered a nervous breakdown. His doctors advised him to take a break, so Walt and his wife took a much-needed vacation. For the first time in years, he stepped back from work to recuperate and reflect on what to do next. Little did he know his biggest breakthrough was on the horizon. Rested and recharged, Walt came home with an audacious new dream, one that many would call crazy. Disney
Hey guys, today Oprah Winfrey shares another rule of success for her, and that is find your purpose. I love this one. This is everything. If we don't know what it is we're supposed to be doing, we don't know which way to go. We don't know how to guide our thoughts, our actions, our everything. So for me, it's determination. That's why I love my one word. Determination means decision, deciding, and then desiring and never giving up until you go after what you really want. See, we have to have that sense of that we're headed in the right direction. And so you got to find your purpose. Oprah Winfrey has shared with us that if you don't have a purpose, you're just wandering around. You're just drifting. And you're not meant to do that. We're meant to lock into something, which is our true greatness, and bring it out and share it with the world. But find out what it is you really want and go after it like your life depends on it. Have a great day, everyone.
And let's reach for our toes, straight knees. Hold it for 10. Okay, let's do a V shape with our legs and reach for the floor as far away from your body as you can. And reach for one side. Hold it there. 10 seconds again. And switch to the other side. And feet together. And gently push your knees down with your elbows. Hold it there. Okay, one leg forward, one leg back. Keep your knee on the ground. Go as far back as you can without hurting yourself, of course. Hold it there for 10. Feel that pull on the front of your front leg. Front of your thigh. That's so fun. Okay, and switch. I love you, son. I love you, universe. I love you, everyone. Determination. Let's do our best in everything we do. Let's be present right now. Alrighty, and let's do a cobra stretch. Roll onto the floor and push the floor and look up at the ceiling or sky, wherever you are. Feel the awesome, awesome power of everything. Of you. Right here, right now, wherever you are. We are aligning together for the purpose of being our best. Alright, and legs crossed again. Back straight. Eyes closed. Once again, feel that power of your breathing. That's you. That's the true, real, and great you taking control of your breath. Now use that same you, that real you, to be your best when that music goes on whatever exercise you choose today. I'm going to have 2 songs playing here. I'm going to have 2 songs. I'm going to visualize myself doing as many sit-ups as I can for one song, and as many lunges, alternating legs as I can for the other song. I'll start off with sit-ups. How about you? What are you going to visualize right now within the space that you have to work with? Keeping in mind the most important thing, your safety. You know how to follow the rules. You know the rules. You're made of the rules of the universe. You're made of truth principles that are designed and there to keep you safe, healthy, and happy, and free, and peaceful. Same way you do your best on these exercises, when that music goes on, it's the same way you'll do everything. Alright, here we go. Sit-ups for me. What's it going to be for you? One of my favorite songs, One Love. Love you, Bob Marley. Wherever you are, love you all. We are one love. Here we go. Feel the joy of working on being your best right now. Feel your determination. Feel that energy. That true energy that makes us one and whole the way you know. Wherever you are, in your home, wherever you are, we can still do our best. We can still control the power of our determination to grow our minds and to grow our bodies. More importantly, to grow our energy that we were born with. That infinite intelligence is who we really are.
Ahora para Ronaldinho, el centro sobre la llegada en la banda de Oleguero. Vamos a ver Van Bommel, el remate cruzado, La Fuente, el balón rechazado y gol.
Here is Messi leading the charge. Ronaldinho draws defenders on a great save, but swept in.
The big centre-back means that Barcelona could go on to win this comfortably. Here's Messi. And it's 2.
Disney Folly, Snow White, and the First Golden Age. By the mid-1930s, Walt Disney had a successful studio thanks to Mickey Mouse and a series of cartoon shorts. But he wasn't content to just make short, funny cartoons. Walt had a grand vision. He wanted to create the world's first full-length animated feature film. This idea became Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. When Walt announced he was going to spend an unheard of sum, over $1 million in the 1930s, to make a feature-length cartoon, Hollywood insiders mocked the project as Disney's folly, believing no audience would sit through an 80-minute cartoon. Even Walt's wife Lillian and brother Roy were worried this gamble would ruin the company. But Walt's belief in the project was unshakable. Walt spent 3 years, from 1934 to 1937, and practically every dollar the studio had on Snow White's production. He even had to mortgage his house to finance the film toward the end. He invested heavily in improving animation, developing new techniques like the multi-plane camera for depth, and training his artists in lifelike human animation, all to make Snow White a quality cinematic experience. The pressure was immense. Partway through production, Walt actually ran out of money. Facing bankruptcy yet again, he showed an early cut of Snow White to bankers to convince them to loan him more funds. He was all in on this dream. When Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs premiered in December 1937, the response proved Walt right and the skeptics very wrong. The film received a standing ovation at its Hollywood premiere. Critics and audiences were astonished by the emotional depth and artistry of the movie. Famed director Sergei Einstein called it the greatest film ever made. Snow White became a global smash hit and the highest grossing film of all time up to that point, before Gone with the Wind came out. The movie earned millions, about $66 million in that era, roughly $1.3 billion today, and adjusted for inflation, and gave the Disney studio a huge financial windfall. Walt had silenced his doubters. His so-called folly had revolutionized animation and made history. With the success of Snow White, Walt Disney entered a golden age of creativity. He immediately started production on more animated features. Pinocchio 1940, Fantasia 1940, Dumbo 1941, and Bambi 1942. But new challenges arose. The high cost of these films, combined with World War II cutting off international markets, meant that several of Disney's follow-up films struggled financially. Pinocchio and Fantasia, though now considered classics, failed to turn a profit by their initial release. By 1944, just a few years after the triumph of Snow White, the Disney studio was again in serious financial trouble, even nearing bankruptcy. Then in 1941, during the production of Dumbo, Walt faced a very personal setback. His animators went on strike. Feeling underpaid and seeking to unionize, many of Walt's employees walked off the job. The strike deeply upset Walt. It was a blow to his family-like vision of the studio, and it halted production for weeks. The distribution, along with the wartime economy, caused the company's debt to soar to $4 million by the mid-1940s. Walt Disney, the man who had created Mickey and wowed the world with Snow White, was once again on the brink of ruin. Yet, true to form, Walt looked for a creative solution. During the war and its aftermath, he shifted focus to new avenues. Disney produced training and propaganda films for the U.S. government to stay afloat. After the war, Walt embraced the emerging medium of television, something other Hollywood studios avoided. In 1950, Disney launched a TV special, and soon after, the immensely popular Mickey Mouse Club television show. These ventures not only generated revenue, they also kept Disney's characters in the public eye and endeared new generations of kids to the Disney brand. Walt's willingness to innovate and diversify during hard times paid off. By the early 1950s, the Disney studio had regained its financial footing, and Walt was ready to pursue his next most ambitious dream of all. Disneyland, 300 rejections and one big dream. By the 1950s, Walt Disney had conquered cartoons and feature films, but he was dreaming even bigger. He envisioned a theme park like no other, a place where children and adults could experience magic firsthand, stepping into the world of his films. This dream would become Disneyland. But at the time, the idea sounded outrageous. An amusement park without the dirt and seedy reputation, one that was immaculately clean and immersive, bankers and investors were extremely skeptical. Building Disneyland would cost tens of millions of dollars, and no one had ever seen a park quite like what Walt imagined. When he pitched the concept to financiers, over 300 banks and investors said no, refusing to fund what they saw as a risky fantasy. Even Walt's own board of directors at Walt Disney Productions weren't fully on board initially. They thought the project could bankrupt the company. But Walt's passion for Disneyland was unshakable. He later said, "I could never convince the financiers that Disneyland was feasible because dreams offer too little collateral." In other words, the bankers couldn't see the vision, but Walt could. Determined to bring his dream to life no matter what, Walt decided to finance the park in unconventional ways. He partnered with the ABC television network. In exchange for investment money to build the park, Walt agreed to produce a weekly TV show, Walt Disney's Disneyland, which also cleverly promoted the future park. He also quite literally bet on himself. He borrowed $50,000 against his own life insurance policy and even sold his vacation home to raise funds. These moves, combined with securing a few loans from more open-minded banks and investors, gave Walt just enough capital to start construction on Disneyland in Anaheim, California. After years of planning and a hectic one-year construction schedule, Disneyland opened on July 17, 1955. The opening day, however, was anything but the fairy tale Walt had imagined. In fact, it was so disastrous that the press dubbed it Black Sunday. Huge crowds showed up with counterfeit tickets overwhelming the park. On that hot 100-degree day, the freshly paved asphalt on Main Street melted the high heels off women's shoes. Rides broke down. Water fountains weren't working. A plumber strike meant Walt had to choose between fixing toilets or fountains. He chose toilets, leaving some drinking fountains dry. Nearly everything that could go wrong did go wrong that day. Walt was embarrassed and deflated as critics savaged the chaotic opening. But if there's one thing we've learned from Walt's story, it's that setbacks never stopped him for long. Walt immediately addressed Disneyland's opening problems. Within weeks, the kinks were ironed out and the public's curiosity turned into genuine excitement. Families flocked to the park in droves. Disneyland became a colossal success, drawing over 1 million visitors in its first 2 months and turning Walt's multi-million-dollar gamble into a thriving enterprise. The profits from Disneyland even cleared the remaining debts from his film studio's difficult 1940s period. In the end, Walt's crazy dream wasn't so crazy after all. He had created the happiest place on earth. Standing on Main Street, USA, with smiling crowds around him, Walt Disney had proven once again that perseverance and imagination could overcome any obstacle. The man who had once been told he lacked creativity was now literally building worlds sprung from his imagination. And he wasn't done yet. Even as Disneyland succeeded, Walt was already dreaming up new ideas, from plans for Disney World and Epcot in Florida to exploring educational TV programming. He kept pushing boundaries until his final days. Walt Disney passed away in 1966, but by then his legacy was secure. He had changed entertainment forever. Walt Disney's legacy of perseverance. Walt Disney's life reads like a Hollywood script, full of dramatic twists. Fired from his job, bankrupt by his early 20s, laughed at by critics, betrayed by partners, and rejected over and over. Yet ultimately victorious. His story is a testament to the power of resilience and vision. As Walt himself once said, all the adversity I've had in my life, all the troubles and obstacles have strengthened me. You may not realize it when it happens, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing in the world for you. Every failure taught him something and fueled his next attempt. So let's recap some of the astonishing setbacks Walt Disney overcame on his road to success. Fired for lack of creativity. Walt's newspaper boss in Kansas City fired him, claiming Walt wasn't imaginative enough. It turns out the young artist just needed a different canvas for his creativity. First company went bankrupt. Walt's Laugh-O-Gram studio collapsed within a couple years, leaving him broke at the age of 21. This failure forced him to leave home and start anew in Hollywood, a gamble that eventually paid off. Lost his early creation. After finally achieving success with Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, Walt had the character and his staff snatched away due to a contract loophole. Rather than fight a losing battle, he let go and conjured up Mickey Mouse, an even bigger star. Hundreds of rejections. Disney struggled to find support for his ideas. His concept for Mickey Mouse was sound, was rejected by more than 300 bankers and distributors before someone agreed to help. Years later, over 300 banks rejected his plans for Disneyland as well. Walt simply kept pitching his vision until he found believers. Disney's folly. Nearly everyone thought Snow White would fail and bankrupt the studio. Even Walt's wife thought he was overreaching. But Walt persisted, and Snow White's success proved it was a genius move, silencing the haters and earning him an Oscar. Actually, one normal Oscar plus 7 miniature ones for his achievement. Financial turmoil and strikes. Walt saw his studio go deeply into debt in the 1940s and endured a painful strike by his employees. He navigated through by reinventing his business into television and other projects rather than giving up. Disneyland's rough start. The chaotic opening day of Disneyland could have spelled disaster. Critics were ready to write it off as a giant mistake, but Walt's tenacity turned it around, and within a short time, Disneyland became a resounding success. Each of these hurdles might have stopped a lesser person. So what was Walt Disney's secret? In part, it was his unwavering optimism and imagination. He truly believed in his dreams, even when nobody else did. But he also matched that dreamer's vision with hard work, adaptability, and grit. He was willing to risk failure again and again, learning and innovating each time until he achieved his goal. Walt famously said, "It's kind of fun to do the impossible." For him, impossible was just a challenge waiting to be conquered. Today, the Walt Disney Company is a multi-billion-dollar empire spanning movies, merchandise, resorts, and theme parks around the world. It's easy to see the shiny surface of success and forget its rough beginnings. But Walt's story shows that every great success story may have chapters of failure. Disney's legacy isn't just Mickey Mouse or Disneyland. It's the reminder that perseverance can transform your setbacks into stepping stones for success. Walt Disney was fired, broke, and repeatedly told no, but he kept moving forward. He turned each setback into an opportunity to start something new. Because he didn't quit, the world has been enriched with his beloved films, characters, and places that have inspired joy in millions of people. So, the next time you find yourself facing rejection or failure, think of Walt Disney. Remember that even the man who created Mickey Mouse had doors slammed in his face hundreds of times. What kept him going was belief. Belief in his ideas and in himself. If 300 rejections couldn't stop Walt Disney, what's stopping you? In Walt's own words, all our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. Believe and keep pursuing your dreams with that same persistence and creativity that Walt showed. And who knows? You might just create some magic of your own. Now let's learn from the incredible story of Jim Carrey. What would you do if you were homeless at 12, scrubbing toilets at 15, and rejected by everyone? Jim Carrey lived it, but he never stopped believing. Jim grew up in Canada in a hard-working family, but when his dad lost his job, everything fell apart. They lost their home and were forced to live in a van. At 15, Jim dropped out of school to help. He worked as a janitor, scrubbing toilets, mopping floors, anything to keep his family afloat. But while he was cleaning, he was dreaming. He knew he was meant for comedy. He practiced jokes in the mirror, did impressions, and finally got on stage. But his first stand-up gig, a disaster. No one laughed. He bombed. Hollywood rejected him. They said he was too weird, too over the top, too much. But Jim refused to quit. He kept grinding, kept pushing, and finally got his break on In Living Color. Then came Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, and overnight he became the biggest comedy star in the world. And here's the craziest part. Before making it, Jim wrote himself a $10 million check for acting services rendered and dated it 1995. In 1995, he got paid exactly $10 million for Dumb and Dumber. Jim Carrey was homeless, broke, and laughed off stage, but he never stopped believing. So what about you? Early life, laughter, and struggle. Jim Carrey was born in 1962 in Newmarket, Ontario, Canada, into a humble, hardworking family. Even as a child, Jim loved making people laugh. At age 8, he would practice making funny faces in the mirror, and by 10, he was so confident in his impersonations that he mailed a letter to Carol Burnett, hoping to be on her comedy show. Comedy was his passion from the start, but Jim's childhood wasn't all smiles and jokes. His family hit serious hardships in his early teens. When Jim was around 12 to 14 years old, his father, Percy, lost his job as an accountant. The sudden blow plunged the family into financial crisis. They even became homeless for a while, living out of a Volkswagen van because they couldn't afford a home. The van was so cramped that Jim and his brother had to sleep in a tent outside. To keep the family afloat, everyone had to pitch in. Jim took on a job as a janitor alongside his dad, cleaning floors and toilets at a factory after school. By the time he was 15, money was so tight that Jim quit school to work full-time and help his family make ends meet. He later said that if show business hadn't worked out, he might have ended up working at a steel mill in Ontario. That's how limited his options seemed back then. It was a tough, uncertain life for a teenager, mopping floors by night and dreaming of comedy stardom by day. Despite the overwhelming challenges, Jim never let go of his love for comedy. In whatever free time he could scrape together, he honed his act. He would stand in front of a mirror practicing goofy expressions and voice impressions, determined to turn his natural silliness into a ticket out of his hardship. His father, despite his own struggles, believed in Jim's talent and did what he could to support his son's dream. Percy Carey would even drive Jim to downtown Toronto to perform at comedy clubs, giving his son a shot on stage when Jim was just a teenager. The family situation was pretty dire, but those small moments on stage provided a spark of hope for young Jim. He knew making people laugh was what he was meant to do. All he needed was a chance and the courage.
Good morning, guys. As we live, laugh, and love our way to infinite mind wealth, we got to remember the words of Les Brown. Les Brown is amazing in the way he's lived, loved, and laughed his way, and he's still on his way to infinite mind wealth. I want to borrow from him today. In his speech at the Georgia Dome, he made a comment about how we can approach all the struggles, all the defeats, all the setbacks we're going to have on this path. And I love his line. I think one of the lines that he used was, don't say that you're having a bad day. Say that you're having a character building day. And I love that. That's something we have to hold on to. If we can hold on to that one thought in everything we do, it will definitely put us on that path to loving our way to infinite mind wealth. Because we're building character. We're not having a bad day. We got to change that thought. We're building character, which is the absolute essential to being our truly great self. Have a great day, everyone.
Next is lunges for me. See how many I can do with this song. Here we go. What about you? Are you doing jumping jacks? Are you doing push-ups? Are you dancing? Are you freeing your spirit through your body movement in a safe way? Whatever you're doing, do it with determination. Here we go. Might have limits, but our mind and our spirit doesn't. There are no limits. When we work on our bodies, we get to work on our spirits, our energy, greatest power that is in everything and anything. Feel the joy of this moment right now. Wherever you are, you can still unite through amazing technology created by human beings, by infinite intelligence. What makes you infinitely intelligent? No matter what. Never let anything, anyone tell you otherwise. Whatever it takes, you have to know and be who you were born to be. Be your best. You're a born winner. Just by being here right now, doing what you're doing. Your energy will never. Demonstration of your greatest power is how you can focus on right now. No matter what's going on around you, you can still take control of your breathing. As tired as you might be getting. More proof. But you don't need proof. It's everywhere. I see it everywhere. I feel it everywhere. I feel your energy wherever you are. Thank you. Thank you for all you've done. Make me who I am. Feel the power of you determining to be grateful right now for this.
The second half of the season. Great pass from Ronaldinho. Messi! Wonderful. Simply wonderful.
On this tie, Barcelona still needs 2 goals to advance through to the semis. Could they get one here? Yeah, they got it back.
Eto'o, bouncing ball is awkward for Betis at the back. Referee will play advantage here. It's Messi. And still, Lionel Messi. Surely now.
Courage to keep trying even when things went wrong. Chasing the comedy dream. Jim Carrey's first attempt at stand-up comedy didn't exactly go as planned. In 1977, 15-year-old Jim got up on stage at a Toronto Comedy Club for the very first time and bombed spectacularly. He had crafted an act full of standard celebrity impressions, the kind he had practiced at home, but the edgy club audience wasn't impressed. His debut was met with silence and awkward coughs rather than laughter. The experience devastated him. My impersonations bombed, which gave me doubts about this career path, Jim later recalled. For a moment, the teen who had so boldly dreamed of comedy stardom was shaken to his core. Was he really cut out for this? And for a while after the first show, Jim stepped back to regroup. He focused on polishing his material and waited for his family situation to improve a bit. Eventually, things stabilized. His father found a modest job and the Carreys moved out of the van and into a house. With a roof over their head again, Jim was able to return to the stage. In 1979, at age 17, he mounted a comeback in the Toronto comedy scene. This time, he had a sharper act and a fearless attitude, and it paid off. He started to get some laughs, and soon Jim booked his first paid gig, a 20-minute spot at a local club for a small $20 fee. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Audiences were beginning to see the spark in the tall, rubber-faced kid from Ontario. Jim's confidence grew with each performance, and so did his reputation. By the early 1980s, he was becoming a well-known young comic in Canada, earning opening slots from more established comedians. One of those established stars took notice in a big way. Legendary comic Rodney Dangerfield saw Jim's act and was impressed by the lanky youngster's manic energy and impressions. In 1981, Dangerfield invited Jim Carrey to tour with him as an opening act. Imagine being 19 years old and hitting the road with one of the most famous comedians in the country. It was an incredible opportunity. Jim eagerly joined the tour, gaining exposure to American audiences for the first time. With Dangerfield's boost, he even got a foot in the door in Hollywood. He moved to Los Angeles in 1983 to try to break into the US show business. However, Hollywood wasn't ready to roll out the red carpet just yet. Jim faced rejection after rejection in those early LA years. He auditioned for NBC's Saturday Night Live, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and was turned down each time. One of those failed auditions was particularly bitter. Jim never even got to perform for Saturday Night Live's producer Lorne Michaels because some staff writers decided in advance that Michaels wouldn't like Carrey's wild style. He landed a starring role in a low-budget comedy film called Once Bitten in 1985 and a short-lived NBC sitcom The Duck Factory in 1984. But true breakout success still eluded him. Casting agents and executives didn't know what to make of Jim Carrey. Some thought his rubber-faced, over-the-top slapstick was just too weird for movies or TV. At times, Jim must have felt like he was too much for Hollywood to handle. The big opportunities that he dreamed of were just out of reach, and the string of rejections could have easily broken his spirit. Yet through all of these setbacks, Jim refused to quit. He kept grinding, kept pushing his act, and kept showing up at comedy clubs night after night to refine his skills. He was a fixture at LA's Comedy Store and the improv circuit, determined to make his mark. Each no he heard only gave him more incentive to try harder. In his mind, he hadn't come this far, from cleaning factories in Ontario to almost getting on national TV, just to give up. Jim believed it was only a matter of time before his big break would come. And he was right. In the late 1980s, his persistence finally paid off in a big way, opening the door to the opportunity that would change his life. Breakthrough on In Living Color. Jim Carrey's first major breakthrough arrived on a TV sketch comedy series, but not the one he originally envisioned. Instead of Saturday Night Live, it was Fox's In Living Color that would catapult Jim to fame. In 1990, Carrey was cast as a regular on this edgy sketch show created by Keenen Ivory Wayans. He was the lone white comedian in a predominantly black cast, and his fearless, zany characters fit right into the show's bold style. Week after week, audiences laughed at Jim's scene-stealing sketches like the accident-prone Fire Marshal Bill with his twisted rubbery face, or the outrageously feminine bodybuilder Vera de Milo. Finally, after years of struggling, Jim Carrey had found a platform that let his oddball talent shine. He spent 5 seasons on In Living Color from 1990 to 1994, becoming one of the show's breakout stars. Hollywood, it turned out, was ready for Jim Carrey after all. They just needed to see him in the right setting. Thanks to In Living Color, Carrey's name was starting to get noticed, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened next. In 1994, Jim leapt from TV fame to global superstardom in the blink of an eye. It all happened in one unbelievable year. In early 1994, he headlined a quirky detective comedy called Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. The film was low budget and the studio didn't have high expectations, but Jim's hilarious performance as the wacky pet detective caught lightning in a bottle. Ace Ventura became a surprise hit, and Jim's catchphrases, "already then," were suddenly everywhere. But he was just getting started. That summer, Jim co-starred in The Mask, a comic book fantasy where his character transforms into a manic, green-faced trickster. It was another box office smash, cementing Carrey's reputation for unmatched cartoonish energy. Then, as if 2 hit movies weren't enough, December 1994 saw the release of Dumb and Dumber, a buddy comedy pairing Carrey with Jeff Daniels. The film was yet another blockbuster, and Jim's portrayal of the sweet but dim-witted Lloyd Christmas had audiences laughing worldwide. 3 major movies in 1 year, each a box office success, turned Jim Carrey into the biggest comedy star on the planet. Virtually overnight, he went from a guy who couldn't get on Saturday Night Live to becoming a household name. Hollywood's attitude towards Jim Carrey flipped almost comically. The same too over-the-top comedian they had been hesitant to cast was now their most bankable funny man. In fact, after Ace Ventura and The Mask raked in cash, studios were desperate to secure Carrey's talents. In 1995, he negotiated a then unprecedented deal, Jim Carrey became the first comic actor to ever earn a $20 million salary for a single film with the dark comedy The Cable Guy. He had ascended to the very top of Hollywood's A-list in record time. But amongst all this whirlwind of success, something truly magical, almost unbelievable, was happening in Jim's life, something he had dreamed about years before. It's a story so crazy you'd think it was a Hollywood script, and it involved a simple piece of paper Jim kept in his wallet. The $10 million check, dreams into reality. One of the most legendary stories about Jim Carrey is a testament to the power of visualization and self-belief. Back in the 1980s, when Jim was still a struggling unknown in Los Angeles, he did something audacious. He wrote himself a check for $10 million. In 1985, a broken, hopeful Jim Carrey made out a personal check payable to himself for acting services rendered, post-dated exactly 10 years into the future. The memo line simply read, "For acting, payment for work he vowed to someday accomplish." He tucked that check into his wallet and carried it with him everywhere. At the time, $10 million might as well have been $1 billion to Jim. He was barely scraping by. But that check was his symbolic promise to himself that one day, somehow, he would be worth that much as an actor. It was a bold act of faith. Now, for years, the check just stayed in Jim's wallet, growing tattered as the date drew nearer. And then, incredibly, reality caught up with Jim's imagination. Just before Thanksgiving 1995, exactly as Jim had envisioned, he got news of a career-making payday. He learned that he was going to earn $10 million for starring in Dumb and Dumber. The dream written on that check had come true almost to the letter. Jim had gone from sleeping in a tent and scrubbing toilets to pulling down 8-figure paychecks doing what he loved. It was a stunning example of what unwavering belief and determination can achieve. Almost like the universe decided to wink at him and say, "You believed, and you did it." Jim never forgot the significance of that moment, especially the role his family played in his journey. When his father, Percy, passed away in 1994, Jim placed the now weathered $10 million check in his father's casket. It was a way of honoring the man who had always believed in him and shared his dream. "I put that check in the casket with my father because it was our dream together," Jim said. The story of the $10 million check has since become a Hollywood legend. It's a powerful reminder to dream big and believe in yourself even when circumstances look impossible. Jim Carrey's life is proof that sometimes the wildest dreams really do come true. Beyond laughter, reinvention, and reflection. By the late 1990s, Jim Carrey was at the absolute peak of comedic fame, but he wasn't content to stay in one box. He had conquered comedy. Now he wanted to prove he could truly act. So Jim took a sharp turn and started pursuing more serious dramatic roles. And once again, he found success against the odds. In 1998, he stunned critics and audiences with The Truman Show, playing a sincere insurance salesman who discovers his entire life is a scripted TV show. Carrey's performance was heartfelt and restrained, and it earned him a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor. The very next year, he transformed himself to play Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon in 1999, another role that earned him critical acclaim and a Golden Globe. Suddenly, Jim Carrey wasn't just a goofy comedian, he was a respected actor capable of depth and nuance. He continued to mix it up in the 2000s, starring in films ranging from broad comedies from Bruce Almighty, Yes Man, to artful dramas like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in 2004, for which he received BAFTA and Golden Globe nominations. Time and again, Jim showed that he could defy expectations, reinventing himself and silencing the naysayers who once doubted his range. Yet, even as his career soared, Jim faced personal trials behind the scenes. The early fame came at a cost to his personal life. He went through 2 short-lived marriages in the 1990s and a series of very high-profile relationships that didn't work out. More profoundly, Jim battled periods of intense depression for many years. He's spoken openly about the fact that making millions of people laugh couldn't shield him from struggles with mental health and identity. After his explosive rise up, Jim had to grapple with the question, who am I, really, when I'm not Jim Carrey, the comedy star? In a candid moment, he admitted that Jim Carrey had become a character he was playing, a persona he felt people expected, which left him feeling empty. The realization pushed him to seek a deeper sense of self beyond the spotlight. Tragedy also struck Jim's life in a deeply personal way. His mother, who had been ill, passed away in 1991, just as Jim's career was taking off, and his father, his biggest supporter, died in 1994, right before Dumb and Dumber made Jim a $10 million man. Losing both parents so early was a heavy blow for Jim. In the years that followed, he also endured a very public tragedy when a former girlfriend died by suicide in 2015, leading to painful controversy and lawsuits, which were eventually dismissed. Through these hardships, Carey gradually turned to spirituality and art as a way to heal and find meaning. He developed a passion for painting and sculpting and spending long hours in his art studio creating vivid, expressive works that surprised those who knew only his on-screen persona. In interviews and appearances, Jim's public demeanor began to change as well. He often spoke about deeper philosophical concepts, the illusion of fame, and the importance of the present moment. Some people found his behavior strange, but Jim explained that he was simply no longer interested in playing the Hollywood game or being who others expected him to be. After decades in the limelight, he sought authenticity and inner peace above all. In fact, one of Jim Carrey's most powerful public messages came during a 2014 commencement speech he gave to graduating students. He told a story about his father's influence that summed up everything he had learned from his own journey. Jim's father had played it safe. He'd abandoned his dream of becoming a comedian and took a steady job as an accountant to support the family. But that safe path ended abruptly when Percy was let go from his job, leading to the hardships that the Careys endured afterwards. From this, Jim learned a lesson he never forgot, as he told the students, "I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which is that you can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you do want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love." In other words, life has no guarantees, so it's better to risk failure at something that truly matters to you. Hearing those words, it's easy to see how Jim's own life exemplifies that philosophy. He risked everything to chase his comedic dream, and though the road was rough, in the end, he achieved more than he ever imagined. Legacy of an unstoppable believer. Jim Carrey's journey from a homeless teen to Hollywood megastar is more than just a rags to riches tale. It shows resilience and authenticity and the power of belief. At every low point in his life, from living in a tent to bombing on stage, Jim found a way to keep his dream alive. He had an almost stubborn faith in his own destiny, scribbling down his wild ambitions on paper like that $10 million check and carrying them close to his heart. When others told him he was too strange, too over the top, or just too much, he didn't tone himself down to fit in. He turned himself up, refining his craft until the world caught up with his vision. And once the world did catch up, Jim still wasn't afraid to change and grow beyond the box he put himself in. He's given us countless laughs with his elastic face and physical comedy, but he's also moved us with performances of real emotional depth. Through successes and failures, he remained at his core that determined kid who just knew he was meant to make people laugh. Today, Jim Carrey has stepped back from making movies at the breakneck pace of his 1990s heyday. After decades of entertaining us, he's hinted at the possible retirement from acting and has become selective about new roles. He focuses much of his time on painting and writing and speaking about the insights he's gained in life. But his impact on pop culture and comedy is already immortal. A whole generation grew up idolizing his characters, from Ace Ventura's talking butt jokes to the mass wild dance numbers, and many of today's comedians cite Jim as a major inspiration. His commitment to his characters and his improvisational genius redefined big screen comedy in the 1990s. And beyond the laughs, Jim Carrey, the man, has inspired millions with his personal story of perseverance. So, what can we take away from Jim Carrey's incredible journey? First, never underestimate the power of belief and hard work. Jim literally envisioned his success years before it happened, but he didn't stop at wishful thinking. He put in the work day after day, whether anyone was watching or not. Second, embrace what makes you unique. The very traits that people mocked or rejected in Jim, his wild energy, his expressive style, became the foundation of his superstar success. He stayed true to himself and it paid off. And finally, remember that fame and fortune aren't the ultimate keys to happiness. Jim's later years taught him, and by extension teach all of us, that personal fulfillment comes from being true to yourself and doing what you love, not from chasing others' approval. As he wisely said, you can fail at doing what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on what brings you joy. Jim Carrey was once a 12-year-old living in a van, a 15-year-old janitor scrubbing toilets, and a young comic who heard more no's than yeses. But he never stopped believing in his dream. Instead of giving up, he used every setback to push harder. That belief carried him through the darkest times and ultimately into the brightest spotlight. If Jim's story tells us anything, it's that no dream is too big, not when you're willing to work for it and believe in it with all your heart. So ask yourself, what dreams do you have, and are you willing to take a chance on them? Jim Carrey did, and he not only changed his own life, he brought laughter and inspiration to the whole world. And that might be the greatest success of all. So whatever your passion is, keep going and keep believing. Jim Carrey's incredible journey is living proof that sometimes life can go beyond your wildest dreams. After all, as Jim would say with that famous grin, Alrighty then, go make it happen. To watch the incredible story of Tony Robbins, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there. Imagine growing up never knowing if there'd be food on the table. That was Tony Robbins' reality. He was born in 1960 and raised in a chaotic and abusive household. Tony was the oldest of three, often acting as a protector for his
And we end as we begin. Legs crossed, back straight, eyes closed. Breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth. Well, the truth is, there's no ending. There's no beginning. Today we started, beginning like we always do, with our eyes closed, imagining going into the future. Only you can do that. Only we can do that. It's all possible through the power of our mind and our thoughts. But we have to control that mind and those thoughts. Because even they are not who we really are. To control our minds, to master our minds, we have to simply be here, now, present.